Welcome in, beautiful people. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Mrs. Best Reviews channel. We are here to do another documentary review. This is a short, limited docuseries. It was on, I believe, HBO Max is where you can watch it if you are using apps. But it's also available if you have cable to watch on Investigation Discovery, so IDTV. Shout out to our subscriber, Mrs. AKA. That is the subscriber that did suggest and request that I review this documentary. And I'm actually really glad that she did because it was super interesting, especially for a psych major and graduate student of psychology such as myself. I will graduate next year. But I did enjoy this documentary. I also felt an immense amount of empathy for Jenny. But let's get into the documentary. But before we do, beautiful people, I do hope that everybody that stops by considers liking the video, subscribe to the channel if you really enjoy what we are doing. Documentary reviews are going to continue. If there's something you watch or see and you're interested in me covering it on this channel, just let me know. I do accept suggestions from everybody. Also, a big welcome to everybody that is watching this video today. I appreciate you for watching. And welcome to all of our new subscribers. And I thank everybody for supporting the channel because we are on the way. As always, we also encourage everybody to tap in with regular people that I co-host other reviews with, as well as other great content creators and the Black Creator Spotlight that is in the video or in the description of every video that I do. But let's get into We Are Jeni. Now, the reason this is called We Are Jeni and not Jeni's is because we're going to be discussing one person. Jennifer is her full name. This was a woman who is based out of Australia. It's not a story that has to do with America, but it's still a story I think is relevant because it's something that a lot of people go through internationally silently. So Jenny's case was out of Sydney, Australia. And we meet her, it looks like she's well into probably her 50s at this point. But she tells us her story, and we start in 1970. And this is the year that she was born. And we learn that she was born in England. And before she was ever abused, it sounds like she got the history of what her mother went through. Her mother got with her father, who was from England. Things were okay with them, but once the father, I guess, got with the mother, and especially after, they conceived Jenny, it looks like the mother was isolated and abused before the father moved on to Jenny. I was not too surprised about that. 9 times out of 10, before a child is abused, they've abused an adult. We kind of covered a little bit of something on a similar subject matter with, what was that documentary they had? Surviving Mormonism with Heather Gay. Unfortunately, some stuff like that did happen in that documentary as well, but her mother was isolated, not allowed to have friends, kept pretty much in the house and controlled. She says that at an early age, her father beat her a lot with a belt, and she says she was SA'd. I know that I can say the word on YouTube because this video is not appropriate and should not be watched by anyone underage or without parental, approval or supervision. However, just to protect my channel, because I am very close to monetizing, but I'm also new to being a creator, I don't want to rock the boat, you feel me? So I'm gonna just refer to it as SA. We also don't want to trigger anybody watching this. But on top of being beat with a belt, and in other ways, she was SA'd by her father every day, she says, for 14 years. She says that it sounds like the abuse was always going on, but in terms of penetration, that started, she says, in an early age, around 6 or 7, and it just never stopped. I really felt for her. I am a survivor of SA myself, so I always empathize with people who have gone through it, but especially with those who had to go through it and live through it every single day. I didn't have to go through it every single day. It happened often, but I didn't have to go through it every single day. I feel like that would break a person so much faster than anything else. Now, eventually her parents did divorce in the year 1994. She was 14 years old. And it sounds like after the divorce, for a short time, things got better. She does eventually go to college. At the age of 26, she was majoring in psychology, going to college in the UK. And it was also in this year that she learned that her father, I believe his name is Richard Haynes, he was also SAing other people in London. And so she decided to go to the police after learning that her father had SA'd another person outside of her. And her idea when she went to the police was essentially to help prove to them that her father is a dangerous man, basically, because this was about another person. Now, the Australian and the police in the UK were working together, and they figured out and believed that Jeni had to have experienced abuse as well at the hands of her father. And though they knew that she had likely experienced something, they did not understand or know the extent of what she went through. They didn't understand how bad the things she went through was. They just probably, unfortunately, the way cops probably think, they probably thought it was just like many other cases of abuse that they may have had. But what ends up happening is Jeni starts giving us some background. And Jeni says that as a child, her mother taught her not to talk to the voices in her head. And this is where the documentary got interesting, because I said it's called We Are Jeni. And if you look at the description there, like it talks about a woman that went through what's known as multiple personality disorder. But in psychology today, it is known as DID, aka dissociative identity disorder, which a psychiatrist does explain throughout the course of this documentary. But I found it to be interesting how they introduced that piece. She says her mother taught her not to talk to the voices in her head because people would think that she was crazy for talking to those voices. I believe her mom probably told her that. We do get a statement from her mother stating that she would have gotten her daughter help had her daughter come to her, and she did not tell her daughter to not talk to the voices in her head because people would think she's crazy. But she does admit to telling her daughter to talk about what she hears in her head as a form of expression. I feel like the mom is trying to change it up or manipulate it so it looks like she's not a bad mom. I don't think the mother is horrible, but I think it is natural, which Jeni will talk about later in the documentary. I do think it's natural for all of us to question, like, what are you doing? Why would you want the abuse of your child to come onto you? And how is this happening every single day for 14 years without the mom having a clue? Now, I understand abuse and maybe her not being allowed to help her child, but for a lot of women, if that man goes from them to their kid, that's where they kind of cut the cord. They stop, they draw the line, like they're not interested in the excuse. They start to kind of wake up and come out of it. In Jeni's mom case, that didn't happen. We'll never know why. But separate from that, I think it's concerning that if you thought your baby had anything in her head as it relates to a voice that wasn't her using her imagination, you should have got her help. You should have got her help. But also, back during Jeni's childhood, mental health was not where it is today. And it also wasn't something that people were comfortable with seeking out in terms of for their children or for themselves. So I can understand how some of this did kind of slip through the cracks. I do understand it. Do I like it? No. It's extremely unfortunate, but what can we do? We can't go back in time. It just teach me, child, if I ever have kids, I'm paying attention to every single sign, symptom. I'm asking them how they are, making sure they know to tell me stuff, like, and feel safe too. It's unfortunate that her mom, did not do more. That's what I'll say. I think that was the biggest disappointment in this documentary, aside from the impact and the hurt that Jeni had to go through. But Jeni lets us know that by the time she went to the police, because she was a student of psychology and she was well into her adulthood, she says that she knew that she had multiple personality disorder. She says, but she did not care because she was confident in what her father did to her and what she had experienced. She knew without a shadow of a doubt that this had nothing to do with personality. This had nothing to do with a diagnosis or a disorder. Her father truly committed these egregious crimes. It's just what happened. And I respected her for that, because as someone who does work in mental health, you do see a lot of people sometimes. I remember when I was working in facilities who question their own decisions, sometimes question their own realities, depending on what they're suffering from, because they don't trust their own brain. It's unfortunate, so I can understand that, but I commend Jeni for still trusting her own self. Now, we get down into the psychiatric breakdown. The psychiatrist, a psychiatrist that did work with Jeni, comes on, and the doctor explains that dissociative identity disorder, also known as DID, is basically, in Jeni's case, the brain's way of designing a way to cope with ongoing repetitive trauma. And I do remember learning about this in school. That doctor is way more educated than me, but that is how it was explained to me. I find it interesting. I find it interesting that a lot of people doubt this disease, though. That's something that wasn't really like focused on in school heavily. It can be difficult to diagnose, but a lot of people outside of psychology, just regular, citizens of society, may not believe fully what comes with that, with DID as a mental illness, which is unfortunate, but also you can understand it, because to other people who don't understand mental health or may not have met anyone with that struggle, to them, they're like, okay, well, if I do something wrong or something bad happens, I can say, oh, it's Molly, this personality, and Ralph, that personality. Like, they're probably looking at it as a cop-out, but in Jeni's case, I do not think it was a cop-out. I think this woman genuinely suffers from DID, and it does make sense when you think of what she went through. Ongoing traumatic SA for 14 years, every day of your juvenile to teens. And later we learn he even tried to do some things in her adult life. So it definitely aligns with that. Now, the doctor also explains that because DID, the brain is trying to cope and deal with ongoing trauma, it creates what's known as alternative personalities, which are referred to as alters. And basically each alter is a different personality that could have its own name. I think the movie Split is probably one of the best and most well-known examples of that, as it relates to like pop culture and stuff that people are aware of. But each alter is essentially a personality and a person of its own function to a certain extent. And they take on different roles and functions as it relates to addressing and protecting Jeni from her trauma. And the goal of these alters when a person has DID is essentially to operate in the world without being overwhelmed by the trauma that they have experienced. So, like, for example, I've experienced SA, and there are a lot of times that I have to take a break from work or stuff, or may have like anxiety attacks and things like that. I've done years of therapy, learned to work through and past it. But in Jeni's case, she's prevented from going through all of that because these personalities in some way have the function to protect her and help her to still function without a shutdown, such as a panic attack or something. So, it's interesting. It's extremely interesting to watch. I was really glad that they brought a psychiatrist on, but when you think about the power of the brain to create a bunch of personalities just so that it can protect us from a trauma someone may have experienced, that's deep. Really sad that her parent caused her that, but that's deep. That's extremely deep. Now, we get to, after the psychiatrist explains how it works, we meet one of her alters, and this is actually the alter that created all of the other alters. And this alter goes by the name of Symphony, and the alter is the age of 4. Now, Symphony says that she is there to support Jeni when she's telling her story, which tells me that Jeni is able to tell her story from the perspective of Symphony so she can remember. And also because it may feel safer for her to do it from that perspective. But Symphony explains that her dad is a monster and would hurt her cats and guinea pigs and, all of these things. And it used to just be extremely problematic for Jeni to deal with, which I greatly believe. And I think it's sad. I also think it's unfortunate. But she speaks about her dad taking her favorite like toys and stuffed animals and things she used as a kid, putting them into a garage. It sounds like this was a place of repetitive abuse for her. And she would battle internally as a kid, like, do I want to save my stuffed animal? Because, you know, they're very real to them. Or from my dad, or do I want to go save it, you know, and risk myself getting hurt by my dad? But the fact that in any child's thought process that their father is someone that they would need to be saved from, in my opinion, is really, really sad. That's really, really sad. Because, you know, though I've gone through things, my dad has always done his very best to protect me and is not someone I've ever not felt safe around. So I think that's unfortunate that Jeni had to grow up that way. And then in turn, her mom wasn't really there for her. It's just, it's sad. It's extremely sad. And it just makes you appreciate if your parents, you know, have not done things like that or put you in those types of situations. You know, God bless her, because that really was sad. But Symphony created other alters. One of her personalities comes on the screen because throughout the documentary, she presents and is interviewed from the personalities. One of them says they're there to protect Jennifer Margot, which is her actual name. She had a 21-year-old personality that went by the name of Eric. And it was interesting because he kept saying he's upset at having to be in a dress, you know, which was interesting. She had a lot of different personalities. She had a 17-year-old personality named Muscles, who hated her father. She really did develop a personality. It seems like probably throughout each stage of her like life in terms of age and stage of development and things like that. And it was incredible to see what her brain really did and created. But Jeni lets us know that one of the hardest questions that people ask her, and one that I wondered myself throughout, you know, this review, is where her mother was through her abuse. And we see somebody who does know her mother and worked for, you know, a paper speaking on the screen. And they say that her mother explained that she missed all of the cues and was also depressed. And we get another statement from the mom explaining that she too felt depression because of the abuse that she went through at the hands of Mr. Haynes. And she says that he also controlled her, what she ate, her medications, things of that nature. So she says a lot of the time she was on so many different medications that she was in a fog, sleep, sometimes sleep for days at a time, and things of that nature. If you know this man's abusive, like, I get that you're depressed, but at what point do we do something about it? Like, just as a mother, I don't feel like it's okay, but I do get that her mother probably felt stuck. But again, this is why you got to be careful who you get with, how you date, and things of that nature. It's just, I get they're trying to explain that the mom was drugged up, but she couldn't have been asleep all that time. She could not have not noticed that her child was developing all these different personalities and talking in different forms at certain times and doing these things. Like, I just don't feel like her mom was oblivious to everything. I truly don't. Let me know, to anybody who is still here, let me know if you guys feel like Jeni's mom was oblivious to what was going on, or if you feel like she was just too depressed to get up and do something about what was going on, or if you truly believe she doesn't know. Because I don't want to make accusations of this lady, but I'm curious to see how you guys feel, because I was kind of looking at it like, girl, how could you like not even get a inkling that something is wrong with your child? Like, I don't understand that part. But, you know, at the very least, at least her mother provided statements to the documentary. I would have preferred if she participated in it, but hey, at least we got a statement. That's better than nothing. But we learned that Jeni's father, Richard Haynes, I'm saying that name as clear as I can so people can Google and send them hate mail. I ain't shit. But Richard Haynes, her father, was eventually arrested, and he was charged with 11 counts of SA on another person in the UK. And they also attempted to charge him with 4 other charges that were all related to what he did to Jeni. I'm thinking at this point in the documentary, I'm like, okay, they got him. Things are going to be handled. Justice will be served. Unfortunately, it was not like that. It was not like that at all. I was extremely disappointed. Jeni and her mother were unfamiliar with the the legal system and the justice court system in the UK. They have what we have over here in the USA, which are plea bargains and deals that people can take in an effort to keep from overcrowding in the jail. I think plea bargains should be given to people with crimes like drug deals, robbing banks. It's very unlikely they're going to do it again. And if they do, not successfully, let them take a plea. But people who commit crimes, you know, like hurting people, assaults with deadly weapons, attempted unaliving, SA, they should not be offered plea bargains because they are truly a danger to society. Like, I don't feel like they should. I know that's my personal opinion. I shouldn't offer that on YouTube, and everybody feels different. I'm not saying nothing about the death penalty. I'm not even issuing or opening up that discussion, but I definitely don't think he should have been offered a plea bargain. If he had 11 counts of SA, that's crazy. He shouldn't have been offered any bargain. He should have just been tried to the full extent of the law. That's what should have happened. But her father took a plea of not guilty to the 4 charges related to his assault of Jeni. And he only pleaded guilty to the 11 charges of the other assault. This, of course, was crushing for Jeni because it kind of invalidates her experience as a survivor and victim, which I don't like. But Jeni tells us she spent 18 years in university, which is basically she spent 18 years in college, which tells us she likely has a higher degree if she's been finishing, and she does. We see that she has a Master of Science. She has a doctorate, I believe, in social science. She had several degrees, extremely brilliant mind. And she did what a lot of people did. She says that the reason she majored in psychology and got a degree at the advanced level in the social sciences and behavioral health is because she wanted to better understand why her father did what he did and how it could impact her. And I think that was probably one of the things that helped give her credibility, because she has all of these degrees in spite of what she's gone through. And I still have not met one psych major in my own experience. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I'm getting my master's degree in psychology, and I do intend to get my doctorate eventually in psychology. And I haven't met a single person working in mental or behavioral health that has not gotten into the field or was interested in it because of personal experience to a certain extent. I think those are the best people to get into that field, because whether you're going into it for research, whether you are going into it to counsel people, whether you are client facing, you're going to be dedicated and extra passionate because of that personal experience. So I was happy to see that in spite of what this lady went through and having DID, she still got her motherfucking degree. You can't tell her nothing. I love her for that. And I'm happy that she was able to attain that, because a lot of people who go through the extent of trauma that Jeni went through will crumble, fail, turn to drugs, sex, all types of crazy things, and, you know, live their life in a way that no one would really approve of. But she still found a way to rise above. So I commend Jeni for that. She'll probably never see it, but maybe somebody watching this documentary will be inspired to speak up about their own, you know, situation as it relates to SA. I also want to remind people before we get to the end of the video, if you check the description of this video, I do have links and information for hotlines and places that you can call for support if you are a victim or know someone who's a victim of SA, domestic violence, or really any form of assault, because we want to educate and make people aware that there is help out there. But moving forward, later on, we come back to present time and kind of get out of her college years and that charge. And fast forward a couple of years later, Jeni wishes her father a happy birthday, which a lot of people are like, why would she do that? Well, a lot of victims, especially when you're victimized by a family member, a lot of them want to find a way to have normalcy. And Jeni says she just wanted to feel like she had a normal parent, a father, and not, you know, go through the horrors that she went through. She's incredibly forgiving and empathetic, you know, which is a good thing, but also like he was not deserving of it. She wished her father a happy birthday and tried to move past the trauma. And what ends up happening is her father comes to live with her in Australia. Now, her father comes to live with not just her, but it sounds like her and her mother. which I'm like, why would your mama want to live with her ex-husband again? Like, this is weird. How are you so depressed that you can't protect or help your child or get your ass out of bed to be a present parent, but you can let this man come live with your child now that you're out of that depression in your adulthood? Like, I don't understand her mom. I would have been fighting that. I would have really been fighting that. Like, no, put him in a hotel, call Airbnb, but he cannot stay here with us. But her father ends up coming to live with her in Australia. And she describes her dad as becoming the perfect father, which I said, you know what? This is what psychopaths and manipulative people do. They will make you think it's okay and play the long game to make you feel safe, just so that it's easier to victimize you again. And it's unfortunate, but these things did happen again, unfortunately. Jeni says that there was a birthday that she had while living with her father, and her mother had to leave the house to go to work. Her mother left the house one day. She says he became aroused, and she saw that, and the fact that you would know that this man is aroused, like, he would really have to like come and show you. Like, she says she fled to the bathroom to try and get away from him, and he followed her and broke into the bathroom and pretty much finished himself off using her legs and rubbing against her without her consent, which is also SA. And I had to imagine that was probably 50 times more scary for her, just because of the fact that he's already harmed her most of her childhood. She probably went back into that shell. You know, I felt for Jeni. She really went through a lot. Horrible things. But she says that after that assault happened, she withdrew her support for him coming into the country. It sounds like she was going to sponsor his visa to come into Australia. She withdrew her support for him, which I absolutely feel like was the right idea. He ended up in immigration detention in Australia. This was in 2005, and he was deported that same year back to the UK. Now, fast forward a couple of years to 2009. It looks like Jeni had to process, but in 2009, she does report that assault to Australian police and authorities. And she says that all of her alters worked together so that she could provide an accurate statement to the police, which in this case was a benefit to law enforcement. Now, according to Jeni, the way that these alters work together to help her write her statement is, it looks like based on each account of the times throughout her childhood that her father essayed her, each alter helped her provide an accurate depiction, because these alters basically provide a way for her to remember what happened to her, almost as if she's got a photographic memory, which is a huge benefit to law enforcement. And the psychiatrist co-signs the accuracy of these alters, which I appreciated, because I think that's important, because the only reason they were created was to process what she was going through. So it does make sense that the alters would be able to give an accurate depiction. But Australian police quietly worked on this case without notifying Richard Haynes at all. And they also worked really hard to get the court to believe that Jeni was not pretending to have this disorder. She mentioned some crazy things about her father and how she described his genitalia. And she ended up giving a lot of her statement as symphony, which the officer who took her statement says it was an interesting experience, but it did kind of help him to believe her, because who's just acting like a child to act like a child? But what ends up happening at the end of it all is the police kept the investigation on the low until it was the right time to arrest Richard Haynes. They extradited him from the UK to Australia, and he was charged with 367 separate SA charges related to doing stuff to people under the age of 18. Her father was put away for life, and he is likely going to die in prison because he was caught at such a late time. But I think it's just really a testament to show the power and the strength that what some view as a mental disorder, it kind of carried her through this process and helped get her through something that most people would crumble for. So I respect Jeni. It's an interesting documentary because this documentary kind of showed that not all mental disorders are just making people off or different or crazy, as people like to say, as the stigma is. Like, a lot of people who experience mental health illnesses, disorders, and have mental health diagnosis, they're diagnosed with those things because their brain is making an effort to protect themselves from trauma and pain that they have gone through. So if anything, I hope that this documentary helps people to learn more about dissociative identity disorder. I also hope that the documentary helps people to be empathetic or feel encouraged to tell their story. If you are interested in supporting somebody who has dealt with SA, or if you know someone who's dealing with it, want someone to talk to, if you yourself are dealing with it, you are not alone. I'm also a survivor of it. Life does continue and it can be great even after something bad has happened. I encourage everybody, to see the links in the description of this video. There are going to be links in the description of this specific video that will offer links to national hotlines of people that you can call for support and help. But other than that, shout out to Mrs. AKA for recommending this documentary. I am a new creator, so if you guys do make a suggestion on something you would like to see me cover, I will happily cover it. Just let me know. Other than that, check out the playlist so you can get an idea of the other things that I cover on my channel. I hope that everybody enjoyed this, and I hope that y'all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Consider liking the video on the way out, and I'll see you guys for my next review. Au revoir.